What's up guys, Andre here, and today I'd like to take a look at using Inertia.js with Laravel and Vue. Inertia was created by Jonathan Reinink and is a framework for creating server-driven single-page apps. So what exactly does that mean? Let me try to explain it in a few sentences. So generally speaking, there are two ways to architecture web apps. There are single-page apps where you have a front end written in JavaScript, maybe Angular, Vue, or React, and that front end communicates with a backend API. And that backend API can be a REST API or a GraphQL API. There, you can do all of the backend things your app needs to do, like persist data to a database. Things like routing, views, and state management all happen on the client. The other way to architect web apps is using the more traditional way of server-rendered apps or multi-page apps. Every page visit is a full page refresh, and things like views and routing all happen on the server. If you want some interactivity in your app, you can drop in some JavaScript to specific pages. Now, Inertia sort of sits in the middle and takes some of the best parts of both approaches. Mind you, there are still instances when building a full SPA or a full server-rendered app is the best choice, but there are also instances when Inertia is a good choice. I would highly recommend reading Jonathan's blog, where he has several articles going through why he created this and how to use Inertia. There's also an episode of the Full Stack Radio podcast where he discusses everything with Adam Wathan. So I'll link to both of those in the description below. So in my opinion, the biggest benefit of using Inertia is the fact that it replaces all of your templates written in Blade to JavaScript templates written in Vue or React. There's adapters for all the major front-end frameworks. There's so many instances where I find myself rewriting my Blade templates to Vue components because I need some sort of JavaScript interactivity in my app. It starts to get quite messy when half of my views are in Blade and the other half are in Vue components. With Inertia, everything is now a Vue component, so you can add interactivity whenever you need it. Again, I highly recommend reading these blog posts on Jonathan's website. There's also a demo app which is found on the GitHub repo called Ping CRM, and I have it running here. And let me just show you. There's auth here. And there's CRUD for these different models. So we have one for organizations, and you can create one, edit, delete, and all that stuff you can do with a CRUD app. And there's also some relationships here. And like I just said, if you look at the code, usually your views live in here, resources, views, and all your Blade views live in here. But with Inertia, the biggest benefit, like I said, is everything is in JavaScript. So here are all of our pages, and they're separated into folders, and they're all Vue Single File components. Or you can use other frameworks like React as well. However, the complexities of writing an API are not here. You still have the convenience of writing server-driven apps. For example, we have a context controller, where you have all the resourceful methods here. So for example, editing a contact here, usually this would be returning a view, but instead it's returning an Inertia view, which we'll take a look at here. So yeah, let's build something similar to this where we can do CRUD on a model. Okay, so let's make a new Laravel app. So Laravel new, let's call it Inertia example. Okay, let's cd into it. And let me open this up in Sublime. Okay, so I have a database set up already. Let me just make sure my environment file is set up for that. So it's called Inertia example and root, and let's do a PHP artisan migrate. Okay, cool. Now let's set up Inertia. So if we go back into Chrome, we need to do this in two steps, one for the backend and one for the front end. So we'll be using Laravel obviously, and then we'll do it for Vue. So let's compose a require first. And then while that's going, we have to set up the root template. So this is the one blade file we have to have. So let's copy this, and it's going to resources, views. Instead of this, we can rename this to app.blade, like it says. And let's replace all of this with this. Okay, what's next? And this is just saying what this directive is doing. It's fine, it's fine. Okay, let's set up the Inertia middleware. So let's just add this to our app HTTP kernel. App HTTP kernel. So let's just put it in the web middle group right here. Okay. And that's it. After we set up the front end, we can do something like this, which replaces our Vue method to render Vue templates. Okay, now I'm going to open another one up because we need this for the docs as well. So I'm going to the Vue one here. Let's npm install it. And then it says configure the server-side framework, which we just did. And we have to set up Webpack using Laravel Mix. So let's do that. So we just have to add this Webpack config method onto our webpack.mix.js. So let's do that. Let's just remove this semicolon and paste this in and add the semicolon. Okay. Now let's set up dynamic imports, and we just have to add this package. So let's do that. Okay. And while that's going, let's add a Babel RC file and add this. Okay. Add that file, Babel RC, paste that in. Okay. And now we need to boot the Inertia app. So let's replace the one that's default in Laravel with this one. So if we go into resources.js, this is the default one, and we no longer need this bootstrap one. So let's just replace all of this with this. Okay. And what else? I think that's it. This is just showing how to create a base layout, which we'll do along the way. Let me just do an npm install for good measure. Okay, that's done. Let's do a npm run watch. And we have an error because it says there's no pages directory. So that's what we'll do next. Let's make a new pages directory here. This is where all our pages live. And let's create a default one. So the build worked now, cool. And let's create one called welcome.vue. And all this is going to do is return a template. Let me just change the spaces to 2. Okay. Div. This is the welcome page. Okay. So back to the Laravel docs. Here is how we render out that component. So let's just do it in the routes file for now. And let's do it on this route. So traditionally you do this, and this is what the default comes with. But now we'll do inertia render. And this works just like this method where we pass it in the view. So it's called welcome here. And then the second argument takes whatever we want to pass in. So for now, we'll just pass in foo bar. But this could be anything. And this will be received as props in your Vue component, which we'll take a look at. Let's make sure to import this. Okay, so let's see if this works. So it's called Inertia example. Just hit .test. Should work. And I spelled it wrong. And there we go. This is the welcome page. And let's accept that prop in our Vue component. So we passed in foo. So let's accept it here. And let's just do export default. And let's accept the props. You can be more explicit. You should be more explicit, but I'm just going to use an array here. And we accepted foo. And let's say foo here. And that should work. Okay. Refresh. There we go. Cool. Okay, now let's take a look at layout here. So we can make a new folder called shared layout.vue. So let's do that. Let's make a new folder, shared, and let's call it layout.vue. And then in our template, we can just copy what we have in here. Let's copy that. Okay. And as you can see, we have a slot here where our other page components will go. And instead of anchor tags, we have inertia links, which is needed to follow links in inertia. So now we have our layout, but now we have to extend from that layout. So let me just grab this script tag and we'll put that in our welcome view here. Let me just put this down here, grab the props, put that up here. Cool. And then we'll remove this. Oops. Let me just add that in. Okay. And then now we can just wrap it in layout tags, and this component will extend from that layout. Right here. Close it, indent it, save it. That looks like it worked. Okay, so now we're extending from this layout. So now if you want more pages, let's quickly do that. Let's add about and contact. We can just duplicate this. Sorry, let's duplicate it. About.vue and contact.vue. This is the about page. Save. And this is the contact page. Save. And now we just have to update our routes. Just add one for about, one for contact. And let's go ahead and do that. About, contact, about, contact. And that should work. Refresh this, home, about, there we go. Contact, awesome. Okay, so Laravel is actually using Bootstrap by default. If you take a look at the resources, I think it's in CSS or SAS, app.sas. As you can see, it's importing Bootstrap. So we'll make use of that for the rest of our app as we build out some CRUD functionality. So for the layout, I'm just going to paste in a nicer nav. And this is taken straight from the Bootstrap docs. And I've also added these links. So home, about, and contact are now here. Home, about, contact. And this is a Bootstrap nav, which we'll take a look at here. There we go. Cool. And this still works. Home, about, contact. Cool. Okay, so what I want to do is have some CRUD functionality for users, since we already have users by default. So the first thing I want to do is add some records for our users. So let me just go into this Inertia example, and let me just add some records. So I'm going to do factory app user. Let's make 30 and create. Now there should be 30 records in our database. There we go, cool. And yeah, let's just put it in here. So let's go to our routes file. Actually, no. Here's what I'm going to do. Let me just remove these. I am going to make some new routes here. And the first one's going to be a user's index. So route get, and we'll make a controller in a second. Oops. Users. Let's make a users controller index. And it's going to be users.index. So let's go ahead and make a controller. PHP artisan make controller users controller, and let's make it resourceful. Okay, so let's go into that users controller, and let's grab all the users here. So it's going to be users is user all, and we can just return inertia render. We're going to make a new view in a second called users index, and then we're going to pass it the users. So just like you would do in Laravel, you do here now in this inertia render, like I showed you a few times already. Users, cool. Okay, let's go ahead and make that JS. Make a new folder, users, and then that's going to be index.vue. And let me just copy something from here. Open that up, put that in there. And now it's accepting users as a prop. And let's just change this to users, and there's no foo prop now. Let's just see if this renders, and we can check out Vue DevTools, which also still works. Okay, so it's /users. And we have an error here. I forgot to import some stuff. So back to our controller, users controller. Let's import user. Let's import inertia. Save that. Try again. Okay, so that rendered. Let's see if we're getting our users in the proper Vue component. So if we go to inertia index, there it is, 30 users, cool. So now I'm just gonna paste some code into our Vue, which just renders out the users. And I'm just gonna paste it in to save some time. So in here, I'm gonna paste in a table. And this is just a bootstrap table. And here is where we loop over our users, which is coming from the prop. And then we have a key, and then just rendering out the name and the email. And we also have this inertia link for editing the user, which will go to /user/user ID/edit. And don't worry about delete. Okay. Cool. Let's refresh this. Okay, so there are our users. Cool. Okay, now let's work on creating users. So I'm going to put a button up here that just is for creating a user. Let's go back to our code. And let me just wrap this in a container. See if that works. Okay, cool. And now we can just add a button here, which I have pasted. I'm just going to paste it. And just set the spaces to 2 again. Okay, so this is just adding a button, and it's going to go to users create. We'll add that route and controller in a second. Just see if it renders. Okay, there it is. Cool. Okay, so back to our code. Let's go back to our routes file. And I'm going to paste in all of our routes just to save some time. Here's the one we want for creating. But here's all the other ones for actually creating the user. This is for getting the edit page. This is for actually updating the user. And this is for deleting the user. So yeah, just to save some time. So for this, we just want users create. So users controller create right here. So all we want to do here is just return inertia render users create. And we'll make a new template in here called create.vue. Okay, let me just copy whatever's in this index. Okay, there's no users here. And let's remove all of this. And let's make a column here. Okay, let's just see if this renders. Form goes here. So this should work. Refresh this. Create user. Okay, so there it is. Cool. And again, to save some time, I'm just going to paste in the form code here. So we're going to make this create user for the submit event, and we have V models on the name, the email, and the password. And yeah, let me add the script part. So we have our components. Let's add our data. Return. So we have a form object. We have name, email, password. Okay. And we have our methods here for creating user. And let's just do alert creating user. Okay, let's see if this works. Okay. Okay, cool. Okay, so back to our code. Here is where we would usually use Axios and make a HTTP request. But Inertia actually has its own set of HTTP methods that we can make use of. So this Inertia, in this case, we want to post to /users. We want to pass in this .form, and then we can do this arrow function, and we actually don't need to do anything in here. For now, we don't. So let's save that. Okay. But now we have to go back to our controller and add that logic. So I already pasted in the route. So it would be this route. So at store. So down here. So here is where you usually do validation. So we can still do that. And I'll show you how to render that out in the browser. So we can do this, and we can just give it the validation rules required, and it's going to paste in the rest to save some time. Okay, so if this passes, this is where we can actually create the user. So user create, and let's just do name, request name, request password. And here is where we would return a redirect. And we can redirect back to wherever route we want. And Inertia actually can intercept the redirect from the back end and have it work in the front end. So let me show you what I mean. So we want to redirect back to the index. So I have named routes, so I can do that. And let me show you how to do error messages and success messages as well. So if there's an error message, then it will stop here and return the error messages. Again, I'll show you that in a second. But if it reaches here, then we know it's successful, and we can pass in a success message. So this is how you would do it in Laravel. And we can still use it this way in Inertia with a few modifications. User was successfully added. Okay. Okay, so let's test the positive case first, where we actually add a new user. So let me refresh this. Let's say new at new.com, password, create user. Okay, so as you see, the redirect actually happened and redirected to the index page, but there's no success message. So to prove to you that worked, I should be in this list now, right there. Cool. But let's see what happens if we don't satisfy the requirements. So I believe there's a requirement for at least 5 for the password. So say another. Say hi. This should not work, and it doesn't work as expected, but there's no error messages. So if you look at the network tab, try again, we actually still get a 200, which if you were doing this in the traditional way using Axios, you would get an error code, whatever the error code is, for something. But for Inertia, we have to do something different. So what's going to happen is the errors are going to be passed in as props here, and then we can just check for that and display them if they exist. So we have to do 2 things here. I believe it's in here. So yeah, so accessing page data in other components. So we have to accept the page data as props. And all we have to do is inject it in our layout. So let's do that in our layout here. So I'm just going to do this. Let's grab that. Okay. Now in our create view, we now have to accept errors as props. So we can do that. But we also have to do one more thing, which is in the Laravel docs for sharing data. So this is how we share data from Laravel into our front-end Inertia. So in our case, we want to share the error messages and the success messages. And you can add whatever you want in here. So into our app, we can do this. Let me save this first. In our app service provider. And I'm just going to copy some code and paste it in, save some time. So right here in our register method, this is just the app name. You don't have to do this, but we'll put it in there anyways. And here are the errors. So we're going to share the errors. So this should come in if there are any errors. And here is where it determines if there's errors or not. So if there's a key in the session called errors, then return those errors. But if not, then just return an empty object. So now, if I did this correctly, and if we go back here, refresh, inertia not found. Let's import this. Okay, save, refresh. Okay, now let me clear this out. Say another at another.com, and let's give it only 3 characters. So there is the create, but now we have props coming in and we have the errors. Cool. And here's the app name we passed in. Okay, so now let's render out those errors if they exist in our Vue template. So back to create Vue. So right above our form, we can just render out an error if one exists. So I'm just going to paste in some code and I'll explain it to you. So this is just checking if there are actually errors, and this just spits out the first error because there can be multiple errors. If you want to get more fancy with it, you can actually specify the specific error for each field, but I just did it this way. So let's see if this works. Let's refresh this. Okay. Let's do another at another.com. Hi. Okay, there we go. Password must be at least 5 characters. Cool. So let me show you how to get the success message. So same process. Let's go back to our app service provider. And we just want to share the success message if it exists. So I'm going to paste in some code. Pretty much the same thing as this. So we want to share something called success message. And we're just checking for if it exists. If it does, then return it back. If it doesn't, then just return null. So let me save that. And now in our index view, because remember we're redirecting back here, we can just check up here. Again, I'm going to paste in some code. Check if there's a success message. If not, if there is, then render it out. So we gotta accept this as props. Success message. Save that. And now let's try this again, but with proper data. Okay. So let's do another at another.com. Password, create user, and there we go. This is the redirect followed, and we have the success message rendered out. Awesome. Okay, so I've done editing and updating behind the scenes because it's pretty much the same thing as creating, and I wanted to save some time. But I'll go through it quickly here. So in our view here, I already have the URL set up for editing. So it's /user/user ID /edit. And here's a route for it right here. So this goes to users controller edit. So down here. And this renders out the user's edit view. And again, this is pretty much the same as create. But now we have a user being passed in. And that's reflected in a prop coming in right here. And then we're just rendering out right here, form, email, form, name. And I just ignored the password here to keep it simple. Okay, so if we click on one, that gets populated. And for updating, we have this update user method, which uses the inertia HTTP, and it goes to users/user ID. It's a patch request. So back to our route, it's this one. So it goes to the update method. And again, we're taking in the user using route model binding. We're validating here. And it even checks the email address if it doesn't check against your own, because it's okay to have your own email address. That just means you haven't updated it, but it still checks against another person's email address. And if that validation passes, then just go ahead and update it, and then redirect back to the index page with this success message. So let me show you that working. So let's go home first. I'm going to update this person, but I'm going to try to update this person with this email address, and that should result in an error because that exists already. Cool. But if we just change the name, change, that redirects here, and you can see the change here. Cool. So as you can see, I also added a delete user button here, and I believe the front end works for that, but I didn't do the back end for it yet. So back to our edit view, there is a delete user here, and it deletes the user, and there's a confirm on it. And if you press OK, then it goes ahead and performs this action. And it's just /user/user ID, but it's a delete request. But there is no method for that yet. I mean, there's a method, but there's nothing in there. So it's destroy. So starting from routes web, it goes here, and then it's the destroy method. Okay, so let me update this first because we want to use route model binding. User, and then all you have to do is user delete. And we can do this again and just change the method. Message user was successfully deleted. Okay, and that should do it. Let's delete this person. Let me just refresh this. Delete. Cancel. It doesn't delete, but if I press OK, it should delete. Nikita Schultz change, and that person is now gone. Awesome. So I hope you see the benefits of having everything as Vue components. If we need any interactivity at all, we can just add it to our Vue components. So for example, a very basic example, if you wanted a spinner on these, anything that performs an AJAX request or any of the buttons, we can totally do that now. We don't have to change any of our blade templates into Vue components because everything is a Vue component. So let's quickly do that just for one of them. One thing I like to use is called Epic Spinners. Spinners, which is a collection of Epic Spinners for Vue. So let's npm install it. And let's go ahead and use one of them. Let's use this one. So for Vue, you just have to import it. So I'm going to put it in the edit. Which one? Right here. And we get an error. Don't worry about that for now. Oops. So this should go in here. And then to use it, we can just grab this. Put that in here. So this is using Flexbox. It's using Bootstrap's utilities. And let me just change this to white. FFF. And I think we just have to import it here. So half circle spinner, cool, save. Okay, so there is the spinner there. Let me just add some classes on it. So add some margin. There's a utility on Bootstrap to add some margin on the right, just a little bit of 2. And I only want it to show up if it's loading. And I think I have all the loading statements in here already when I pasted in the code. So let me just check. So loading is false by default, but when we go ahead and submit it, it's set to true, and it's set to false when it resolves. Cool. So you can do this for the rest of them as well, but I'm just going to do it for the update user button. Okay. Refresh. Okay, so let's see if this shows up. So it should be really quick. Okay, so there you see it there. My computer is really slow right now, so you can see it struggling here. Okay, and there's the error message. Cool. But if you put that back, this should work and redirect to the index page. So there you go. Cool. So there you have it, guys. We managed to build a basic CRUD app with Inertia, Laravel, and Vue. As I said earlier, definitely check out Jonathan's blog posts as well as the Ping CRM example app. Although Inertia is still in a very early stage, I really like the direction it's headed in, and I can definitely see myself using this for a lot of projects in the future. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one. Okay, thanks. Bye.